And it's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's start with some weapon-grade gaslighting from alleged comic Jimmy Kimmel. Here is the far-left purveyor of late-night disinformation engaging in some more disinformation, this time about his ideological bedfellow Tyler Robinson.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Yes, I'm sure the far-left loser moaning about supposed fascists and obsessed with trans activism with a trans boyfriend is a closet Republican, according to Kimmel. I mean, let's just disregard officials telling us what his ideology is, and let's disregard the alleged killer's own words. But Jimmy Kimmel wasn't done yet. He even mocked President Trump's grief for Charlie. Now, President Trump loved Charlie Kirk. Those close to him say he saw him as another son. But this is what Jimmy Kimmel had to say.
This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay?
How a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish. You know what? I'd forgive the callous, hateful miscreant if he was just a little bit funny. He is supposed to be a comic. Now, this next gal is supposed to be some sort of a model. She was a contestant on a show called America's Next Top Model.
About Charlie Kirk. You like terrorism? Eye for an eye. I think the only thing that went wrong that day was that Trump wasn't standing behind him getting a secondhand bullet.
Model, she's as ugly on the inside as she is on the outside. That brings me to Jemele Hill, the former ESPN anchor, the race-baiting simpleton who continues to lie and engage in deliberate misinformation. Listen to what she says about the man charged with murdering Charlie.
In the wake of Charlie's murder, there was an incredible amount of angry discourse from the right, blaming the Democrats, blaming liberals, saying, you're the reason this happened. Only to find out, surprise, 22-year-old white dude, loved guns, raised by two parents, lived in a good home, dad is a minister, also a sheriff. Didn't check any of them boxes y'all thought he would check, did he?
Well, he checked the boxes I expected him to check, Jemele. He is a far-left, trans activist lunatic who regurgitates the same BS you do. He claims Charlie was spreading hate because the left called telling the truth hateful. His dad wasn't a sheriff, but he did appear to come from a decent family. It just shows that coming from a decent, God-fearing family isn't enough to inoculate a sick mind from toxic leftist indoctrination. And did Jemele really blame Republicans, conservatives for angry discourse? I mean, how dare we be angry that a brilliant young man was murdered in front of his children? How dare we call out those celebrating this sickening act of domestic terrorism? And be on guard for those who claim that this isn't a left or right issue, that this isn't political, that there isn't a clear motive. Those are lies, and we're not putting up with lies. We are not tolerating the left's bold-faced lies and gaslighting, including this from CBS.
5 days after Charlie Kirk's murder, the shooter's motive remains elusive. No writings left behind, vague secondhand testimony. That uncertainty and the risk of drawing sweeping conclusions suggests the murder may share similarities with recent violence not driven by an obvious political ideology.
No clear ideology, except Tyler Robinson told us precisely what his ideology is and why he targeted Charlie Kirk. There is zero mystery about the motives of Tyler Robinson or his political ideology. The only question is who else may have been involved. Now, let's hear from The View. Here is Whoopi Goldberg offering some sober analysis. She looks almost disappointed that Charlie's message will only grow stronger. Remember, it was just a few years ago that Whoopi was forced to apologise to Turning Point USA for falsely linking Charlie's movement to neo-Nazis. The ladies of The View have done plenty to incite the demented left.
And what assassins should always remember is just because you take somebody out doesn't mean the message is going to stop. And it's important to keep that in mind.
Now, we've had plenty of examples of instant karma this week as hate-filled individuals have got their comeuppance for celebrating a great man's assassination. And here is another example. This young man thought it was funny to turn up to a memorial at Texas State University and do this. Incredible how tolerant the crowd there is of those antics, but he did get a dose of instant karma. Shortly after that incident, he was identified and promptly expelled from the university. And I don't feel one bit sorry for him. You want to engage in that type of cruelty, mocking not just the murdered, but those grieving his loss, you deserve to get expelled. Now, let's hear from ABC talking about the text messages of this alleged killer. Do you think they reflected on how his language echoed that of mainstream leftist figures from the media and the activist class and the Democrats? No. Instead, they were marvelling at how touching it all was.
What was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate, who was transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner.
Now, I'm delighted to have this next guest back on the show following his sold-out tour with Jordan Peterson. Dave Rubin, host of The Rubin Report, is returning to Australia this October for 3 exclusive shows in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. The dates are on the screen. Get your tickets early before they sell out. Dave, welcome back. I wish we had brighter news to discuss tonight, but the loss of your good friend Charlie Kirk has had a profound impact on tens of millions in America and around the world. Tell me how you're feeling and what you've learned in this past week.
Yeah, well, Rita, it's always good to see you. We used to do this a bit more often. I am excited to come to Australia. And actually, the thing that brought you and I together years ago, when we were doing a lot of shows together, was the thing that brought Charlie and I together. We just wanted to talk about things. We wanted to talk about the hot button issues of the day and debate them. And years ago, when Charlie and I met first in 2017, I was a man of the left, he was a man of the right, and he came up to me at an event we did and he said, hey, let's go on tour together. Let's talk about everything. Let's debate everything. Let's go to colleges. Let kids ask us whatever they want. Let's just battle it out the way you're supposed to battle it out in a free society, which is with words, of course, not with bullets. And Charlie and I did that dozens and dozens of times. We were protested and we had fire alarms pulled and bomb threats and all of those things. Of course, nothing like what happened this week, which you're right, has now, I think, affected hundreds of millions of people all over the world. Charlie was a great human being. Putting aside the politics for a second, Charlie was undoubtedly a good husband and a wonderful father, and his wife is now a widow and his children will grow up without a father. He was a good human being who was doing the thing that we're all told we should all do, which is talk to the other side. Nobody from an American context did that more than Charlie Kirk. That's what he devoted his life to. Charlie would get hate from both sides because he was always trying to find new people to talk to. To this day, I still didn't agree with everything Charlie said, but I will say, and this is a great credit to his debate skills and his thoughtful way of having nuanced conversations, I came a lot closer to Charlie's opinions over the years than Charlie came to mine. I think I did move him on a couple things, but he definitely brought me more within, let's say, a wide tent conservative movement. So this is a terrible time for America, but I would say a terrible time for the world because, whatever happens in America, as you know, it leaks across the entire world and can make it across an ocean and land in your continent as well. And I just hope cooler heads can prevail right now, because there, right now we're sort of, as a country, we're going through a degree of mourning, although there's a lot of people that are quite angry too. And it just feels like we're kind of sitting on a powder keg right now. If one or two other weird things happen, it feels like all bets are off. And I'm really devoting myself right now, my show and my upcoming tour in Australia, to finding the people that want to break bread again, that want to figure out, okay, hey, we're different, but we got to learn to live together. And that's going to be my mission. I think it's the only way that I can honor Charlie appropriately.
And I want to ask you about this notion that we keep hearing, including in the Australian media, which just regurgitates the MSNBC, CNN talking points. This notion that Charlie Kirk was deeply homophobic, he was hostile to the LGBT community. You're a gay man, you were a friend of Charlie Kirk. Can you please address that allegation?
Yeah, well, look, I happen to be gay. It's not something that I even think about that often or anything else. I've been married for over 10 years. We have kids. It is what it is. We live a decent life like most people. And Charlie, look, Charlie, like millions of other people, Charlie was entitled to his own personal religious beliefs. There's a video that maybe you've seen. Elon Musk even tweeted it out in the last couple of days, where somebody started asking Charlie, how can you welcome gays into the conservative movement? And Charlie's answer is so wonderfully thoughtful and the perfect example of what Charlie was. Charlie makes a point of saying, hey, I have my own religious beliefs, but America is not a religious theocracy. Did he want America to be restored with Judeo-Christian values? And did he believe that he felt that his personal views were best explained through Christianity? Well, the answer to that is absolutely yes. But Charlie was not crusading against marriage equality. Charlie was welcoming gay people into the conservative movement. By the way, he was also doing that with black people and Hispanic people and everyone else. I mean, all of the commentary around this man is completely ridiculous. But I will tell you, Charlie was at my house not too long ago. My husband and I sat at weddings next to he and his wife. We broke bread many, many times. And again, people are allowed their own personal religious beliefs. I, for one, would not force a religious institution to do anything that it didn't want to do. But that's the difference between a religious belief and a secular institution, which is the government of the United States. And by the way, if you can credit that sort of open idea that Charlie was presenting there, you can credit him for then bringing that to MAGA, which then opened up enough so that Elon Musk and Joe Rogan and Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard, all of these ex-liberals, disaffected liberals like myself, Rita, I think a little bit like you, could then come and be part of MAGA. So no, he has nothing, there was no hatred in his heart. I would also make a quick distinction. I think it's important. The idea of the LGBT community, people need to stop saying it, because the L's and the G's and the B's have nothing to do with the T's. And that has become a political ideology more than a sexuality or a gender identity. Yeah.
Absolutely, and increasingly the LGB want to distance themselves from the rest of the alphabet. That just keeps increasing too. But I don't even know how many letters we're up to now.
Two-spirit, you know what two-spirit is, Rita?
Oh, two-spirit, yes. We're supposed to start with 2SP now, aren't you, before you start the LGBT? And then you've got the plus at the end, so it's infinite number of letters that you could add to that. Now, can I ask you to respond, please, to this clip from Jimmy Kimmel, the painfully unfunny so-called comic, had this to say on his late-night show.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Dave, this kid was apparently a conservative, which must be news to him and his trans boyfriend.
Yeah, it's wild. First off, Jimmy Kimmel exists as a quote-unquote comedian, and I use air quotes there because I've never heard him say anything funny, but he exists as a political operative in some ways more than Charlie himself existed as a political operative. Yeah. Charlie was out there talking to people and open to ideas. Jimmy is doing a show where he makes, I don't know, probably about $15 million a year to only force one political ideology down the throats of Americans. No, the kid came from what sounds like a decent two-parent household that had some conservative values, and then he went to college and apparently became radicalized there, and then had, I suppose, a trans boyfriend and was pushed into leftist ideology. So the fact that Jimmy knows he can go up there and just lie to his audience, I mean, I would say this goes to what I know you guys are dealing with in Australia, which we're certainly dealing with here, which is a massive misinformation war on the populace, that the people who control the strings of everything seem to think they can just lie about absolutely everything, tell you up is down, left is right, boy is girl, and get away with it. And to the extent that Jimmy Kimmel is still on TV, I suppose they can get away with it.
Well, they started with just straight out fakes. They put the alleged killer in a fake Trump T-shirt, and that circulated, and people saw that and believed it before it was debunked. And the lies continue, as you've just heard. Now, it's not just the lies, it's utter ugly invective. Streamer Stephen Burnell, known online as Destiny, he had this to say about Charlie's murder and the political climate in America.
If you wanted Charlie Kirk to be alive, Donald Trump shouldn't have been president for the second term. Every time he's in office, this happens. People joked about when Biden came in, it was so boring, nothing was going on. 7 out of 10 of the largest protests in American history have happened under Donald Trump.
And he also defended mocking Erica Kirk, Charlie's grieving widow.
It's such a simple thing. If you're going to weaponize somebody's grief against the other party, well, then, of course, people have a right to fight back against it. I think that she has every right to grieve in whatever way she wants. But when that grief is going to be weaponized to do recruitment, political recruitment, and further radicalization of the other side, then, of course, you not only have the ability to mock it, I think you have the obligation to mock it. It's insane.
There you go, Dave. You have the obligation to mock her, a grieving widow who has to explain to a 3-year-old child why her daddy is never coming home.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is shocking, except I've seen enough clips of this guy endorsing violence and saying all sorts of crazy things for years that I'm not surprised at all. There are other streamers. I think you've probably heard of this guy, Hassan Piker, who's huge on Twitch, who's literally called for violence, at blood in the street, violence of capitalists, who is still on that platform. But I would say broadly, without making it about a specific person, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised by any of this. I mean, the left in America has purged all of the decent liberals. It has become a radical party that is trying to usher in Marxism, communism, and socialism. And by the way, they finally admit that themselves. You know, years ago, they started calling themselves Democrat socialists. They don't really even say the Democrat Party anymore. Now they are outright socialists. And then when you combine what I know you have in your country too, with the these Hamas marches and everything else, you get this crazy red-green alliance. And what do they have in common? What do the Queers for Palestine have in common with the, the perceived oppressed Palestinians? It's that they would love to take out Western society. That's what they have in common. That's it. Yeah. So it is not surprising that these people would either endorse violence or mock those who have just lost their loved ones because of violence. It's actually a fairly obvious extension of everything else that they tell us.
Dave Rubin, we can't wait to see you in Australia next month. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita.
Joining me now is documentary filmmaker and commentator Ami Horowitz. Ami, much of the media's reporting on this issue has been appalling, and there's been no self-reflection about the role so many in the media played in using lies and hyperbole to demonise a man like Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, no question about it. And look, obviously, the lies and the falsehoods of the media are legion, and obviously there is no self-reflection. Look, they obviously, to say they dropped the ball is understating the amount of failure they did on this issue in particular. Look, they don't hide their agenda. And that's all I'm asking. You know, look, I'm asking you to change your policies. Just hide your agenda for us, right? Just pretend, try to pretend to be even-handed. They can't even do that. And I think that a great example of that is the trans issue, because I think what we're seeing now is that this was certainly motivated or possibly motivated by this trans issue, because his boyfriend / girlfriend was trans. And the media continues to push the idea of trans violence, but not the trans violence that we've talked about. This being an example of that, or the mass shootings we've seen at Christian schools and other places by trans people. And in fact, when we should do a segment, by the way, on dumb crap that AI says, because I want to do a cursory cursory look on the amount of trans violence we've seen, particularly mass shootings over the past couple of years. And while it gave me a number, it then couched it and all these things like, well, just so you know, there's less trans violence than there is cisgender violence, which I didn't ask for, by the way, and also, by the way, is not true when it comes to mass shootings. But yes.
And also not true when you look at percentages. That's the key point. Of course, there's going to be more cis, if you're going to use that language. But we're talking about a very small percentage of the population that is overrepresented in these sorts of crimes, particularly in the last few years, Army. And I think denying that it is part of the problem. If we're going to actually be tackling these issues in any meaningful way, we need to be having uncomfortable conversations centred on the truth. And that was really what Charlie Kirk was all about.
That's right. And they want to hide the truth. And the last point I'll make about the trans violence is that there is and I'll go quickly to Kirk himself and the lies about him, but they do want to push the agenda of trans people being killed in significantly larger numbers than cis people, which is simply not true. I actually did the work on this. I looked into it over the past couple of years, and there've only been a very, very small handful of trans people who had been murdered because they were trans. And by the way, the vast majority of them were black women killed by black men. There is not a single example that I could find, Rita, of a MAGA supporter, of a Trump supporter killing a trans person. Yet this is the narrative being pushed by the media, which leads to this culture of self-aggrievance that we've seen, which leads to this violence that we saw with Charlie Kirk, right? Because that was the lie made about him. So yes, the lies about Charlie Kirk are legion. They're so significant, in fact, that factcheck.org, a leftist organization which lies all the time, including about me, including about Sky News Australia, had to actually do a list of things that were lied about Charlie Kirk because so much of it was out there. They called him, for example, a white supremacist. He was the opposite of a white supremacist, right? He fought and kicked out a group from Turning Point called the Groypers, who are actually white supremacists. He was called... Stephen King, whose books, by the way, I will never read again, said he wanted to stone gay people. Another massive, scurrilous lie against him. They talked about his Asian hate. Zero. Untrue. And they talked about his anti-Semitism. And as a Jew, I think my antennas are kind of up about that. He was a supporter of Israel. He was a philo-Semite, Rita. And the only example they can use for him saying something anti-Semitic was he said Jewish money was involved in liberal causes, causing more anti-Semitism. Fact check, true, not anti-Semitic. Things that are true are not racist or anti-Semitic. They are what we call facts.
Absolutely. And as on Asians, and I can speak about that, he was a huge campaigner for having some sort of meritocracy in the entrance systems of universities, because Asians are amongst the biggest group who are disadvantaged when you are not getting in on merit, on what your academic achievement is, but what minority box other than Asian that you're ticking. Now, Tyler Robinson is facing the death penalty. Tell me about the charges he faced today and the FBI's efforts in particular to uncover anyone else who may have been complicit in this act of political violence.
Yeah, he's charged with a number of things, including the capital felony of aggrieved murder, which is the single largest charge you can have in Utah, which is basically it can range from the death sentence to life imprisonment. And by the way, I'm not sure, while I'm certainly a supporter of the death penalty in certain cases, and I think this might in fact be one of the cases I would support it in, because he wasn't just trying to kill somebody, he was trying to start a war. He's trying to tear the fabric of this country apart by this killing. But I'm not sure which is worse, which is him having the death penalty or sitting in jail for since he's 21, maybe upwards of 70 years, watching what he tried to kill actually take root in this country and bloom. And I'm talking about the ideals of Charlie Kirk. We've seen across the world, not just the country, the world, people picking up the mantle of Charlie Kirk. So maybe it'll be worse for him to see that live for the rest of his long life in jail. I'm not sure. But I think what's even more interesting, because I think with Tyler Robinson, it's pretty clear cut. The evidence seems, in terms of DNA evidence, it all seems that he will, in fact, be prosecuted and he will go to jail or be killed for this. But I think what's interesting is the FBI is looking into accomplices or people who've actually hid the evidence, right? And I think that if you go into this chat group that he had, I think a lot of things start happening. First of all, chalk this up to things on the internet never go away, folks. You may try to delete it, but how dumb are you not to know that this thing is still sitting on some server somewhere in the air? But I guess they don't know how tech works, even though they're all, kind of involved in the tech world, right? In the gaming world. But look, there are numerous examples of these people talking as long as a month before this exact date of Charlie Kirk's assassination. So that's either an incredible coincidence.
I have seen
that.
I
don't really believe in incredible coincidence, or they knew something in advance. And I think this is all going to come out because at the least,
I think the FBI. I think the FBI is going to track down every single lead. They're not going to leave a single stone unturned. Ami Horowitz, thank you so much for your time tonight.